You almost settled. You were this close to convincing yourself that the life you were living was the life you were supposed to live, that the ache in your chest was just something everyone carries, that wanting more made you ungrateful. And then something happened. You felt it, a shift, not loud, not dramatic, more like the sound a lock makes when a key finally turns. And now you're here. That's not an accident. You didn't stumble onto this video because some algorithm got lucky. You're here because something inside you recognized a signal, the same way your body knows to breathe without being told. Something in your spirit clicked play because it already knows what your mind is still catching up to. The timeline you were afraid to believe in, the one where things actually work out for you, where the doors open instead of slamming shut, where the money shows up and the right people find you and the weight lifts off your shoulders for good. That timeline isn't some distant fantasy anymore. You stepped onto it, and there is no going back. I need you to hear that again. There is no going back. Not because you can't. You could absolutely shrink yourself down again. You could crawl back into that old version, put the mask on, pretend the fire in your chest doesn't exist. But you won't. Because once you've seen the higher version of your life, once you've caught even a glimpse of who you're becoming, the old world stops fitting. It's like trying to put on shoes you wore when you were 12. Technically, they still exist, but your feet won't go in. You've outgrown the container. And that discomfort you've been feeling, that restlessness that won't let you sleep right, that keeps nudging you at 2 a.m., that makes you feel like you're supposed to be doing something, but you can't quite name it yet, that's not anxiety, that's not something wrong with you. That is your highest self knocking on the door of your current life, saying, I'm ready when you are. Let me tell you what actually happened, because most people won't explain it this way. For a long time, maybe months, maybe years, you were operating on a timeline that wasn't yours. It was the one handed to you, the one built from other people's fears, other people's limitations, other people's idea of what's realistic. And you walked that path because you didn't know there was another one, or maybe you knew, but you didn't think you were allowed to take it. You watched other people live bold, expansive lives and told yourself they had something you didn't. More talent, more connections, better luck, a head start you could never make up. But here's what none of them will tell you. The only difference between you and the people living the life you want is that at some point, they stopped asking for permission. They stopped waiting for the circumstances to be perfect. They made a decision with their whole chest, and the universe rearranged itself to match. That's exactly what's happening to you right now. The shift you felt, the one that brought you to this video, it wasn't random. It was the moment your energy crossed a threshold. Think about it like water heating on a stove. For a long time, nothing visible happens. The water just sits there, absorbing heat, looking exactly the same. And if you judged it by what you could see, you'd think nothing was changing. But underneath the surface, every single molecule is moving faster, building pressure, getting closer. And then, in what looks like an instant, the whole thing transforms. It goes from still water to a rolling boil in what seems like a heartbeat. But it was never instant. It was always building. You just couldn't see it until it broke through. That's your life right now. Everything you've been through, every prayer that felt like it hit the ceiling and fell back down, every night you cried in a room by yourself wondering if anybody was listening, every time you picked yourself up when nobody was watching. That wasn't wasted. That was the heat. That was the invisible transformation happening beneath the surface of your life. And now, finally, you're starting to boil over. I want you to stop for a second and think about the last few weeks. Have things felt different? Not necessarily better on the outside, not yet, but different in a way you can't quite explain. Maybe you've been less willing to tolerate things that used to feel normal. Maybe conversations that used to entertain you suddenly feel hollow. Maybe people you used to chase stopped hearing from you, and for the first time, you didn't feel guilty about it. Maybe you've caught yourself thinking thoughts that scare you a little. Big thoughts. Thoughts about what your life could look like if you actually went all in on yourself. That is the shift. It doesn't always show up as a windfall or a lucky break. Sometimes it shows up as a quiet refusal. A no that used to be a yes. A boundary that didn't exist last month. A decision to stop explaining yourself to people who don't have a seat at the table of your future. The shift isn't always about what comes in. Sometimes it's about what you finally let go of. And I know that part is hard. Letting go of the old timeline means letting go of some people, some habits, some versions of yourself that felt safe, even though they were slowly suffocating you. It's one of the cruelest tricks of growth. The things that kept you alive in one season become the things that keep you stuck in the next. And your spirit knows that. That's why it's been restless. It's not confused. It's impatient. It knows the new version of your life is right there, and it's tired of watching you drag your feet. So let me be clear about something. You are not crazy for wanting more. You are not selfish for outgrowing people. You are not delusional for believing something big is coming for you. The only delusion, the only lie, is the voice that tells you to play small. That voice doesn't come from wisdom. It comes from fear dressed up as logic. It says things like, be realistic. It says, don't get your hopes up. It says, people like us don't get that. And every time you listen to it, you take one step back from the life that's trying to reach you. If this message found you at exactly the right moment, if you felt something in your chest shift while listening, type "no going back" in the comments. Not for me, for you, as a marker, a line in the sand between who you were and who you're becoming. Because here's what I want you to understand about this new timeline. It doesn't require you to be perfect. It doesn't require you to know the how before you say yes to the what. The highest version of your life has never been about having all the answers. It's about having the nerve to keep walking when the path goes dark. It's about trusting that the ground will meet your foot even when you can't see it. And right now, you're being asked to trust at a level you never have before. I know that's terrifying. I know there's a part of you that wants a guarantee, that wants someone to promise it's all going to work out before you take the leap. But that's not how this works. The guarantee comes after the faith, not before it. The net appears after you jump. The bridge builds itself as you walk across it. That's not a cliche. That is the mechanics of how your life upgrades. You decide first. You act first, and then reality bends to match. This is the part most people get backwards. They look at their bank account and decide what they're worth. They look at their past and let it write their future. But you are not most people. You never were. And somewhere deep in your bones, in a place that existed before your name, before your story, before everything that happened to you, there is a knowing. A quiet, unshakable certainty that you were built for something that hasn't happened yet. That knowing is louder now than it's ever been. And that scares you, because if it's real, then you have no excuse to stay where you are. If the shift is real, if the new timeline is real, then sitting still becomes a choice. Playing small becomes a decision. Staying in the old life isn't comfort anymore. It's cowardice. And you, whoever you are listening to this, you are many things, but you are not a coward. You proved that by surviving every single thing that tried to take you out. You proved it by still being here, still breathing, still searching, still believing even when believing felt stupid. You proved it every time you got up on a morning when the weight of your world said, "Stay down." That kind of strength doesn't come from nowhere. That is the raw material of someone whose life is about to change in ways that don't make sense on paper. And it's already started. Look around. The signs are everywhere if you stop looking for them in the places you expect. It's in the stranger who said something that hit different. It's in the song that came on at exactly the right time. It's in the way certain doors closed recently, not to punish you, but to redirect you towards something your limited perspective couldn't see yet. The universe doesn't waste pain. It doesn't waste your tears. Every single one of those moments was a course correction, turning you degree by degree toward this exact moment, right now, where you're hearing words that feel like they were written specifically for the inside of your chest. They were. So here's what happens next. You don't need to make some dramatic declaration to the world. You don't need to post about your transformation or prove anything to anyone. The shift has already happened. Your only job now is to stop resisting it. Stop bracing for impact every time something goes right. Stop telling yourself that happiness is something that happens to other people. It's happening to you, right now, in real time. And every moment you spend doubting, it is a moment you spend standing in the rain while holding a closed umbrella. Open it. Let the new reality in. Let the abundance in. Let the love in. Let the ease in. Not because you've earned it through suffering, though you have, but because it was always supposed to be yours. You just weren't ready to hold it until now. And now you are. Something shifted in your favor. Something cracked open in the architecture of your life, and light is pouring through the gap. And no, there's no going back. Not because the door is locked behind you, but because the version of you standing here right now, the one who listened to every word of this, the one whose heart is beating a little differently than it was 10 minutes ago, that version of you would never choose the old life again. Not in 1,000 lifetimes. You've crossed the line. Now walk like it. If this reached you exactly when you needed it, leave a like so it can find someone else who's standing right where you were 5 minutes ago. And if something in you knows there's more, that this wasn't the last message meant to find you, hit subscribe, because the next one might be the one that changes everything.